The shaking started after midnight. Eddie Crawford sat on the porch of his family's ranch, hands trembling so badly he had to grip the wooden rail just to keep them still. 23 years old, home from the Pacific for 6 months, and still he could not sleep through a single night without seeing the faces of the men he had killed on Okinawa. The faces of the men who had died beside him. His hands would not stop shaking. Behind him, through the screen door, he heard his father moving in the kitchen. Jacob Crawford, 74 years old, making coffee at 1 in the morning because his son's nightmares woke the whole house. Again. Sarah had left 3 days ago, packed her bags while Eddie sat silent at the kitchen table, unable to explain why he flinched at loud noises, why he could not talk about the war, why the man who had kissed her goodbye in 1944 had come home a stranger wearing his face. "I can't marry a ghost," she had said. "Come find me when you figure out how to be alive again." The screen door creaked. Not his father. Heavier footsteps, slower, the careful tread of a man who had learned patience over a very long time. "Your daddy says you need to talk," the old man said. Ezekiel Crawford was 120 years old, born in 1828, before the railroad, before the Civil War, before Wyoming was even a territory. The oldest living man in Colorado, according to the newspapers that came around every few years trying to photograph him. His mind remained sharp as a skinning knife. Eddie did not turn around. "I don't know what to say, Grandpa." "Then listen." The ancient man lowered himself into the rocking chair with the care of someone whose bones remembered every hard year. In the moonlight, his face was all weathered leather and deep lines, but his eyes still held that peculiar intensity Eddie had noticed as a child. Eyes that had seen things most men could not imagine. "You know what your problem is, boy?" Eddie said nothing. "You're running from something you can't name, trying to forget things that won't let you go. Sarah walked out because you wouldn't talk. But talking's not the problem. Then what is? You don't know how to live anymore. War taught you how to survive. But surviving and living are different things entirely." Eddie finally looked at his grandfather. "How do you know?" The old man reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out something small. Black wooden beads worn smooth by decades of handling. A rosary, Catholic prayer beads, though the Crawfords had been Baptist for 3 generations. "These belonged to a woman who taught me the difference," Zeke said. "Long time ago, before your grandfather Jacob was born, before I knew what it meant to choose something worth dying for." He held the beads up to catch the moonlight. "You want to know how to live again? I'll tell you. But you have to listen to the whole thing. No interruptions. Deal?" Eddie nodded. The old man settled back in his chair, rosary beads wrapped around his gnarled fingers. "September 1873. I was 45 years old and I hadn't spoken to another human being in 5 months. The trap line ran 12 miles through country so rough it would break a horse if you pushed too hard." Ezekiel Crawford checked it on foot, leading his mare through lodgepole pine and aspen groves that burned gold in the autumn light. The Wind River Range rose around him like the spine of the world peaks already white with early snow. 5 years alone in these mountains. 5 years since he had buried Margaret and the boys and walked away from everything that reminded him of them. 5 years of silence broken only by wind and water and the occasional scream of a hunting cat. He preferred it that way. The 4th trap held a marten neck broken clean. Good pelt. Winter coat coming in thick. He skinned it with the efficiency of long practice, scraping the hide clean before stretching it on a willow frame. $6 in lander, maybe 7 if the trader was honest. Enough to buy another month of coffee and flour and ammunition. Enough to not have to see another human face. The horse spooked at the 5th trap. Ears, back, eyes rolling white, that particular terror horses show when they smell death. Not the clean death of a trapped animal. The complex, ugly death that comes to men. Zeke pulled his rifle and moved forward on foot. 30 yards off the trail, hidden by deadfall timber, he found her. Blood soaked into the pine needles like sacrament wine, and he knew right then that 5 years of peace had just ended. She wore the black wool habit of a Benedictine nun. High quality, not the rough material of frontier missions. Her hands were bound in front of her with iron wire, the kind they use for telegraph lines. Barbed, new invention meant to keep cattle penned. It had cut her to the bone. He knelt beside her, setting the rifle within reach. Her face was swollen, one eye completely shut. Dried blood matted her hair on the left side where something hard had caved in her skull. Purple bruising ringed her throat where someone had tried to strangle her and failed. Or stopped. She was maybe 23 years old. Too young to die like this. Too young to have lived long enough to deserve this. He checked her pulse at the carotid artery. Thready, fast, 120 beats per minute, the rhythm of severe shock. Her skin felt cold and clammy, despite the afternoon warmth. When he lifted her eyelid, the pupils were unequal, the left one blown wide and fixed. Brain injury, depressed skull fracture. He could feel the dent with his fingers, a thumb-sized crater in the bone. Her breathing came shallow and wet, fluid in the lungs, blood in the corner of her mouth. Internal injuries, probably. Ribs broken, maybe a punctured lung. Professional assessment, the kind he had learned in the army. She would be dead in an hour, maybe two. He sat back on his heels and looked at her. Not his problem. Church business, whatever had happened here. Getting involved meant questions, meant law, meant people. The smart thing was to ride on. Check the rest of his traps. Come back tomorrow and bury whatever the wolves left. That is what 5 years of isolation had taught him. Survival meant caring about nothing, about no one. But then her chest hitched in a ragged breath that sounded exactly like his daughter Sarah had sounded the day the diphtheria took her, and Ezekiel Crawford discovered that 5 years had not made him as hard as he needed to be. Ah, hell, he said to the empty forest. He cut the wire carefully with his knife, preserving the pieces. Evidence in case anyone came asking. The wire had been cinched deliberately tight, the barbs digging deep into her wrists. Whoever had done this had meant for her to suffer, meant for her to die slowly. Her right wrist was cut to the tendon. He could see the white fibers of muscle through the torn skin. The left was worse, the wire having sawed nearly to bone. Infection had already started, red streaks running up her forearm like branching lightning. 3 days, he estimated. Maybe 4. Left here to die of exposure and blood loss and terror. He checked her airway first. A blood clot blocked her throat. He hooked it out with his fingers, and she gasped, pulling in air with a sound like tearing fabric. Better. Not good, but better. The head wound he could not treat, not here, not with what he carried, but he could stabilize it. He cut leather strips from his saddlebag and fashioned an improvised neck brace, immobilizing her head to prevent the skull fracture from shifting and killing her before he got her home. Pressure bandages on the wrists. His last clean cloth torn into strips and bound tight. Not tight enough to cut circulation, but tight enough to stop the bleeding. He elevated her legs using his bedroll, treating for shock. Covered her with his wool blanket. Tried to get water into her, one careful teaspoon at a time, waiting between each dose to make sure she did not choke. She did not wake during any of this. He built a travois from pine poles and rope angling, the poles just right so the drag would be smooth, padding the platform with pine boughs so she would not be bounced to death on the journey back. He had built dozens of these during the war, dragging wounded men off battlefields. The muscle memory came back easy. Lifting her onto the travois, he noticed details his medical assessment had missed. Her hands were soft, educated hands that had never done manual labor. The rosary at her belt was hand-carved walnut with a silver crucifix. Expensive. Her teeth, when he checked her mouth for obstructions, were good. Well cared for. Wealthy background, good nutrition as a child. A rich girl playing at poverty, or a rich girl forced into it. The journey back to his cabin took 4 hours. He checked her pulse every 30 minutes. Weak but steady. Her breathing remained shallow but regular. She did not wake, which was probably mercy. Moving her was agony enough unconscious. He found the remains of their camp a quarter-mile from where she had been left. 2 wagons had been here, the wheel ruts deep and clear in the soft earth. A cold fire pit, 3 sets of women's footprints, 2 in heavy mission boots and 1 in finer leather. Signs of a struggle. Torn fabric caught on branches, blood spray on a tree trunk, but also signs of deliberate abandonment. They had left supplies behind. No attempt to bury her or hide her. They had simply decided she was dead enough and moved on. He took note of the direction they had gone, west, then circling back east toward South Pass, toward civilization, leaving her to the wilderness in whatever mercy God saw fit to provide. As the sun touched the peaks and the temperature began to drop, Ezekiel Crawford led his horse toward home with a dying woman on a travois behind him, and he wondered what kind of God these people claimed to serve. Her eyes opened once as the last light faded. Amber green, the color of deep forest pools. Pater noster quies in cali, she whispered. Latin, the Lord's Prayer. Then in English clear, despite her damaged throat, let me die. Please, it's God's will. I'm meant to die. Ma'am, Zeke said quietly, not stopping, not looking back. I don't presume to know God's will, but I know mine. You're not dying on my watch. She tried to fight him. Her hands scrabbled weakly at the travois poles, trying to throw herself off. No strength behind it, just desperation. You don't understand, she gasped. I can't go back. I can't. Let me die. It's better. Let me die. Back where? To them. And she passed out before he could ask who them was. The cabin sat in a small meadow where Crow Creek ran clear and cold from the high peaks. Stone fireplace he had built himself, 16 by 20 feet. Walls chinked tight against winter. A good cabin, a lonely cabin. He had not expected to ever bring another person here. The fire burned hot while water boiled in his cast iron kettle. Ezekiel laid her on his bed, the only bed, and began the real work. Cleaning wounds in the wilderness was an art he had learned from bitter experience. Boil the water for 20 minutes at a full rolling boil, long enough to kill whatever invisible demons lived in creek water and turn small cuts into death sentences. While it heated, he laid out his tools: whiskey for disinfection, clean cloth, needle and thread, the medical manual he had carried since his army days, its pages stained and dog-eared. A shelf of books lined one wall. Margaret had insisted on them. Shakespeare, the Bible, an almanac, a seed catalog. Little pieces of civilization she had tried to preserve in the wilderness of their marriage. He had not touched most of them in 5 years. The cabin still held traces of her. The quilt on the bed that she had sewn while pregnant with Daniel. Pressed wildflowers in a frame above the mantel. A carved wooden cross that had been her mother's. Things he could not make himself throw away or burn. He poured whiskey over the wire wounds on her wrists, and she screamed half-conscious, a sound of such raw agony that his hands almost stopped. Almost. But infection killed more men than bullets, and mercy now meant cruelty later. The left wrist had an abscess forming a pocket of pus the size of a quail egg. He lanced it with his knife tip, the blade heated red in the fire and cooled. Quarter cup of corruption drained out thick and yellow-green. He irrigated it with boiled water, flushing the wound until it ran clean. The right wrist was worse in a different way. The wire had cut through skin and muscle to the tendon itself, and he could see the white fibers partially severed. If that tendon snapped completely, she would lose the use of her hand. Nothing he could do about that here. No surgeon within 100 miles who could repair it properly. So he cleaned it as best he could and hoped. Her palms were full of wire fragments, tiny pieces of iron embedded in the flesh like glass. 24 pieces he extracted with tweezers, counting each one, working by lamplight as the night deepened and the temperature dropped. The head wound he could only clean and dress. The skull was fractured, depressed inward, where something heavy had struck her. Club, probably. Rifle butt, maybe. He shaved the hair around it with his straight radour, moving slowly, carefully. Saved the hair in a clean cloth out of some instinct toward respect he did not fully understand. The dent in her skull was deep enough to fit his thumb. Trying to reduce it to push the bone back into place would likely kill her. So he cleaned it with boiled water and whiskey, applied a poultice of yarrow and comfrey and moss that a Shoshone medicine woman had taught him to make, and wrapped it in clean bandages. Her throat bore the distinct purple fingerprints of strangulation. Crushed larynx partially. That explained the ragged quality of her breathing. He made willow bark tea, the frontier's aspirin, and got it down her a spoonful at a time. Anti-inflammatory, pain relief, all he could offer. The ribs were cracked on the left side. He could feel them shift under his fingers, broken but not shattered. He bound her chest carefully tight enough to immobilize the ribs, but not so tight she could not breathe. Blood in the corner of her mouth suggested internal injuries. Nothing he could do about those except pray they were not as bad as they looked. By the time he finished, the moon had risen, and he had been working for 6 hours straight. She lay on his bed, bandaged and cleaned, and still probably dying, and he sat by the fire trying to remember the last time he had cared this much about whether someone lived or died. It had been 5 years. That first night he did not sleep. He checked her pulse every 15 minutes, monitored her breathing, changed the cold compress on her forehead when her fever spiked to 104 degrees, a temperature that could boil her brain if it went higher. The fever brought delirium. She spoke in 3 languages, Latin prayers, French phrases he did not understand, English pleas that broke his heart. Please, Mama, don't make me go back. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. Damn Uncle Robert to hell. Damn him. Damn him. Hail Mary full of grace. Hail Mary full of grace. Hail Mary full of grace. Over and over until the words lost meaning. He understood forced vows. Near dawn, her fever broke. The delirium faded. Her breathing eased. When he checked her pulse, it had dropped to 90. Still elevated, but no longer the runaway heartbeat of shock. She might live. She woke fully as the sun rose. One moment she was unconscious, the next her eyes snapped open, clear and focused and absolutely terrified. She saw him across the room, this strange bearded man in buckskin and wool, and her hand shot under the pillow, where it emerged holding a small knife. A butter knife, actually, hidden in the hem of her habit, somehow overlooked when they had bound her. Stay away from me. Her voice came out as a ruined rasp, the damaged larynx turning her words into something between speech and whisper. Ezekiel raised his hands slowly, showing empty palms. Easy now. I'm the one who bandaged you up. If I meant harm, we wouldn't be talking. She held the knife steady despite her weakness. Her eyes tracked him with the wariness of prey that has learned predators wear many faces. You're safe here, he said. Got a fever that spiked high enough to cook eggs. Wire cuts went deep, but you'll live if you don't fight me. Who are you? Name's Ezekiel Crawford, mountain man. Been up here 5 years more or less alone. She studied his face, looking for lies probably, looking for the violence she expected from men. Whatever she saw there made her lower the knife slightly. Why, she whispered, why did you help me? Didn't seem right leaving a woman to die, even a woman of well. Her laugh was bitter, broken, the sound of something that had been beautiful once and was now just shards. Woman of God, is that what you think I am, Mom? You're wearing the uniform. Prison clothes don't make a man guilty. Fair point. She sagged back against the headboard, the small knife falling from her fingers. The brief surge of strength that fear had provided was gone. She looked at her bandaged wrists, at the clean nightshirt she wore that hung huge on her frame, at the unfamiliar cabin around her. You undressed me. Had to treat the wounds. I was a medic in the war. Seen worse. The war. She looked at him with new eyes, calculating his age. You're old enough. Union or Confederate? Union. Cavalry scout mostly. Some field medicine when things got bad. Did things get bad often, or often enough? Silence fell between them. Not uncomfortable exactly, but heavy with unasked questions. Finally, she said, I'm Sister Catherine. Catherine Hartwell. Benedictine order. A pause.
You're not alone.
Or I was. I don't know what I am anymore. What happened to you? Her face closed. Does it matter? They're gone. I'm here and I can't go back. Who's they? The ones who left me to die. Your own order, my own order. She said it flatly without emotion, like someone reciting a fact too terrible to feel. Ezekiel stood and moved to the fireplace, giving her space. You want coffee? Got some heating? Yes, please. He poured 2 cups and brought one to her, setting it on the table beside the bed. She wrapped both bandaged hands around it, savoring the warmth. Thank you, she said quietly, for saving me, for tending me, for not. She did not finish the sentence. You're welcome. I should tell you the truth. About what happened, about why I can't go back. Only if you want to. She looked at him with those forest-colored eyes, and he saw something shift in them. A decision being made. Trust being extended despite every instinct screaming against it. My name is Catherine Hartwell, she began. I'm from Philadelphia. My father was a shipping merchant. Very wealthy. Very proper. He died when I was 16, left his entire fortune to me, his only child. She sipped the coffee, wincing as it touched her damaged throat. My Uncle Robert became my guardian, my father's brother. Within a month, he gave my mother an ultimatum. Enter me into a convent, or he would declare her mentally unfit and take control of the entire estate. Your own uncle. My own uncle. He told me that it was temporary, told me I would take vows, stay until I turned 21, and could legally inherit, then leave with the church's blessing. My mother was weak, fragile. I knew Robert's threat wasn't idle, so I agreed. How old were you? 17, the same age Margaret had been. They sent me to a convent outside Philadelphia. Strict, Benedictine. The Mother Superior told me the same thing. Temporary vows. I would be released at 21. Her hands tightened on the cup. I took my first vows. Poverty, chastity, obedience. They felt like a noose tightening. But I told myself it was only 4 years. I could survive 4 years. 21 came and went. 21 came and they told me my vows needed to be renewed. Just a formality. Another year, then 22, then 23. Every time I asked to leave, I was told I was being tested, that my desire to leave proved I wasn't ready, that God was teaching me patience. 6 years. 6 years of watching the world through a window. 6 years of silence during meals. 6 years of being told my thoughts were sin and my questions were pride. 6 years of learning that the key is invisible when everyone pretends it's a sanctuary. She looked directly at him. 3 months ago, my mother died. Heart failure. They didn't tell me, didn't let me attend the funeral. I found out by accident when a letter arrived addressed to her and I saw the date. When I confronted Mother Superior, she said my mother's death was God's will and I needed to accept it. I said I wanted to leave immediately. She said that was impossible. That's when they decided to transfer me to a mission in Wyoming territory, remote, isolated, where I could learn true obedience. The coffee had gone cold in her hands. We traveled by wagon, me, 2 other nuns, 2 guards the church hired. 5 days into the journey, I tried to run, made it maybe 2 miles before they caught me. The guards, her voice faltered. The guards beat me, bound me with wire, left me under that tree to do it as a lesson about the price of disobedience. Jesus Christ. The other nuns tried to stop them. Sister Beatrice, the older one, she argued, but the guards said they had orders from Bishop Whitmore, my uncle's friend. She set down the cup with shaking hands. They were supposed to kill me, weren't they? Make it look like an accident. My uncle gets control of my mother's estate. The church gets its donation. Everyone wins except the girl who wanted to be free. Ezekiel said nothing for a long moment. Outside, a jay called and the creek ran and the world continued as if this conversation was not happening. Finally, he said, "So you're running." "I'm surviving." There's a difference. Running is when you don't stop. Surviving is when you figure out what you're living for. Catherine looked at him with something like hope breaking through the despair. "What did you survive?" It was his turn to be silent. "Then diphtheria took my wife Margaret and both my boys. Daniel was 8, Samuel was 5. Happened fast. Fever coughed the membrane growing in their throats until they couldn't breathe. I was out trapping, came home 4 days later and found 3 graves. Neighbors had buried them, left me a note saying they were sorry, that God had called them home. I came up here to die slow. Figured I'd trap until the loneliness killed me, or a bear did. Turns out dying is harder than it looks when you are good at surviving." Catherine reached out before she could stop herself and touched his hand, just briefly, a gesture of comfort from someone who understood grief. "I'm sorry." "So am I." They sat together in the morning light, 2 people who had survived things that should have killed them, and something passed between them that neither could name yet. Finally, Zeke stood. "You should rest. You lost a lot of blood. Take weeks to heal properly." "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not, but you will be if you don't let yourself heal." He hung a blanket to divide the room, giving her privacy. A small gesture, but she recognized its significance. Respect, the thing she had been denied for 6 years. "Mr. Crawford." "Zeke's fine." "Zeke, thank you for saving my life, for listening, for not judging." "Nothing to judge. You made the choice you had to make. So did I. That's all anyone can do." She lay back on the bed, exhausted from the conversation, from staying upright, from fighting the pain. "Will they come looking for me?" "Don't know. Depends on whether they think you're dead or just dying. And if they come," Ezekiel checked his rifle more from habit than need, "then we'll deal with it. But for now, you heal. Rest of it can wait." The days took on a rhythm. Kate woke to find Zeke already up, coffee made, checking the perimeter. He would bring her breakfast. Venison stew, cornbread, strong coffee. Simple food, but after 6 years of convent gruel, it tasted like celebration. She was not allowed to help at first. Too weak, he said. Risk of infection, risk of tearing the healing wounds. So she sat and watched him work. And in watching, she learned who he was. Economical in movement. Nothing wasted. He chopped wood with the precise efficiency of someone who understood that wasted motion meant wasted warmth come January. He mended equipment with care because buying new meant a 2-day ride to Lander and dealing with people. He spoke little, but when he did speak, every word meant something. Weather's changing, he would say, looking at clouds she could not read. Storm in 2 days. Need to finish the south wall before it hits. Or Martin's getting smarter, avoiding the sets, have to move them uphill. Or rarely, quietly, you're looking stronger today. By the 8th day, she could sit up without dizziness. By the 10th, she insisted on helping. I won't be useless, she said when he protested. You're recovering from near death. That's not useless. Then let me recover while doing something. He relented, gave her his buckskin shirt torn at the shoulder from a branch. Can you sew? She examined it. His stitching was functional, but crude, the kind of repair that closed a hole but created discomfort. I can do better than this. She could. At the convent, needlework had been meditation. The only time their hands were their own. She repaired the shirt with small, precise stitches, then added decorative work along the seam without thinking about it. A pattern of leaves and vines, subtle but beautiful. When she handed it back, he stared at it for a long moment. This is art, he said quietly. This is function made beautiful. There's a difference. Is there? She smiled. Her first real smile in 6 years. By the 14th day, she was strong enough to walk outside. Just to the porch, Zeke said. Don't push it. But when she stepped into the open air and saw the mountains rising around her, saw the endless sky unmarred by walls or windows or bars, her knees buckled. He caught her, held her steady while she cried. I've never seen anything so beautiful, she whispered. This is God's country, Zeke said. No walls here. I think I understand why you stayed. By the 3rd week, Kate had become part of the rhythm of the cabin. She cooked, learning to work with limited ingredients. She cleaned, bringing order to 5 years of bachelor chaos. She mended everything that needed mending, which was nearly everything. Zeke tried to pay her, offered her share of the pelt money. You don't owe me, she said. I want to help. Why no? Because I need to feel useful. Because sitting idle makes me remember. Because you saved my life, and this is the only way I know how to say thank you. So he let her work, and in working, she began to heal in ways that had nothing to do with wounds. The teaching went both ways. Kate would read to him in the evenings. Shakespeare first. The Tempest, her voice trained from years of choir practice. The words filled the cabin like music. You make it sound like it means something, Zeke said. It does mean something. You just have to listen. Later she sang hymns at first Latin masses that she knew by heart. Ave Maria, Panis Angelicus, songs that had felt like chains in the convent chapel, but here in the wilderness felt like freedom. Zeke would stop whatever he was doing and just listen, sometimes with his eyes closed. That's the sound heaven makes, he said once, if there is such a thing. In return, he taught her the wilderness. Water safety first. See how it flows over the rocks. Fast current means clean. Stagnant means death. Learn the difference and you'll never die of bad water. Plant identification. He took her on short walks, showing her yarrow for wounds, willow bark for pain, hemlock that would kill you if you mistook it for wild carrot. The wilderness is a book, he said, written in a language most folks never learn. But once you can read it, you'll never be lost. She absorbed everything with the hunger of someone who had been denied knowledge for too long. At the convent, she said questions were vanity, curiosity was sin. They wanted us ignorant and obedient. And now I want to know everything. The shooting lessons began in the 4th week. You need to know how to defend yourself, Zeke said, in case I'm not here. He started her on the Navy Colt revolver. Lighter than the rifle, easier to handle. Demonstrated the stance, the grip, the sight picture. Feet shoulder width, dominant foot back. Grip firm but not tense like you're holding a bird. Front sight sharp, target blurry. Exhale half and hold. Squeeze, don't pull. Let it surprise you. Her first shot went wild, kicking the pistol back so hard she nearly dropped it. You're flinching before you fire, Zeke said. Gun knows you're scared. He stood behind her, hands over hers, showing her the proper technique. Both of them acutely aware of the contact, neither acknowledging it. Her second shot hit the tree. Not the target, but the tree. By the 10th shot, she was grouping them on the target edge. You're a natural, Zeke said, genuine surprise in his voice. I'm a good student. There's a difference. Is there? She smiled at him, and something passed between them that made them both look away. By week 5, she had graduated to the Sharps rifle. Heavier, more powerful, harder to manage. Zeke demonstrated first. Breath control, smooth trigger, ball follow through. The shot echoed through the valley, and the target 100 yards out sprouted a hole dead center. Your turn. Kate mirrored his stance exactly. Settled the rifle, controlled her breathing, squeezed. The rifle boomed, and the target center exploded. Zeke stared. How? Mathematics. Trajectory is geometry. Wind is a variable. You calculate, compensate, and execute. He looked at her with new respect. You're not just following instructions, you understand the principles. I had excellent tutors before the convent, expensive ones. My father believed daughters should be educated. Your father was a wise man. My father died before he could protect me from his brother. The bitterness in her voice was familiar to Zeke. It was the taste of betrayal by those who should have loved you most. In week 6, he took her hunting. They tracked a deer together through morning mist, moving in silence over ground that looked empty to her eyes, but which Zeke read like a printed page. There, he whispered, pointing. She saw it, a doe 60 yards out grazing in a small meadow. Heart shot, Zeke murmured, behind the front leg, quick death. Kate settled the rifle, controlled her breathing, calculated wind and distance, and fired. The doe dropped instantly, but when they reached it and Kate saw the animal lying still, blood spreading from the perfect heart shot, she broke. I killed it, she said, voice small. Yes. I ended its life. Yes. I've never... She could not finish. Zeke knelt beside the deer, placed his hand on its still warm flank. First time taking a life is supposed to hurt. Day it doesn't, that's when you worry. He showed her how to field dress the animal, removing organs immediately to prevent spoilage, using every part. Meat, hide, sinew, organs. Nothing wasted. This animal died to feed us, he said. We honor that by using what it gave. Kate started to say a prayer over the carcass, the old Catholic blessing for meals, then stopped halfway through. Is that appropriate? She asked. I don't know what I am anymore. Zeke looked at her seriously. You're someone who respects life. Call it prayer or gratitude, it's the same thing. Don't let the people who hurt you take that from you too. The domesticity deepened as the weeks passed. Mornings, Kate woke first, started the coffee, fed the 3 chickens Zeke kept for eggs, began whatever needed cooking. Zeke would check the perimeter, split wood, maintain equipment, the careful routine of survival. Breakfast together, comfortable silence, the kind of quiet that comes when words are unnecessary. Days spent learning. Kate practiced shooting until her shoulder ached, learned to track game, to read weather, to identify edible plants. Zeke taught and she absorbed, hungry for knowledge that made her capable instead of dependent. Evenings brought reading, conversation, the sharing of stories. Nights grew harder. The physical attraction had been there from the beginning, denied and ignored. But as Kate healed and strength returned, as the barriers of patient and healer fell away, the awareness became impossible to ignore. The way she braided his hair before he went hunting, her fingers gentle in the long brown and gray strands. The way he watched her hang laundry when pressing her dress against her body. The way they both fell silent when their hands touched, passing the coffee pot. The first snow came at the end of week 6. Kate ran outside like a child, spinning in the falling flakes, laughing with pure joy. Zeke watched from the porch, unable to look away. When she came back inside, cheeks flushed and hair damp, she caught him staring. What? Nothing, just, you look happy. I am. For the first time in 6 years, I'm actually happy. That night, reading by firelight, Kate stopped mid-sentence and looked at him. Ezekiel, I need to tell you something. He set aside the trap he was repairing. I'm listening. I don't want to leave, ever. The fire crackled. Outside wind moved through the pines. I know what that means, she continued. I know what I'm saying. This isn't just gratitude or temporary safety. I want to stay. With you. Here. Zeke crossed the room slowly, knelt before her chair so they were eye to eye. You're still wearing the habit. Kate looked down at the black wool she wore every day, all she had of her old life. I know. I'm not ready to let it go completely, but I'm not Sister Catherine anymore either. What are you, Diane? I don't know. Someone in between, someone becoming something new. He reached up, cupped her face gently. You don't have to choose tonight, or tomorrow, or ever if you don't want to. You can stay here just like this, and I'll be content. What if I want to choose you? Then I'll be here, for as long as you want me. Promise, promise. They did not kiss, not yet. The moment felt too important to rush, but Kate took his hand and held it, and they sat together in the firelight, and something settled between them that felt like coming home. Morning brought trouble. Zeke returned from checking his traps with his face set in that particular stillness, and that meant danger. Kate saw it immediately. What's wrong? Might be nothing. Don't lie to me. I can see it in your face. He showed her what he had found. A trap destroyed not by an animal, but by a boot heel. Horse tracks, 3 sets, shod horses. A cold campfire less than 5 miles away.
Oh, you're not alone.
Someone's been watching the cabin,
We'll face it together.
he said. Kate went pale. They found me. Maybe, or just curious hunters. No. Her voice was flat, certain. It's them, the church. They won't let me go. If they come, we'll handle it. How you're one man. They'll bring guards, men with guns. Then I'll teach you to fight. I know how to shoot. That's different from killing a man. Zeke looked at her seriously. If it comes to that, you do what you have to do, but right now we prepare. He spent the afternoon teaching her reloading drills, how to load the Navy Colt in under a minute, how to keep spare cartridges ready, how to shoot and move not standing still like a target. If I say run, he told her, you run. Don't argue, don't wait, don't look back. I'm not leaving you. Their first real argument, her independence against his protective instinct. They compromised. She would train harder, learn tactics, defense, survival, and he would trust her to be capable. But as the sun set and the temperature dropped, both of them knew the peace of the last 6 weeks was ending. Something was coming. On the Colorado porch, Eddie stirred. They came for her, didn't they? Zeke nodded slowly. Oh, they came, with righteousness and law and the authority of the church behind them. Thought that would be enough. Was it? The old man's smile was predatory. Boy, they didn't know what they were walking into. She was worth fighting for. And I'd already buried everyone I loved once. Wasn't about to let it happen again. Eddie looked at the rosary beads in his grandfather's hand. What happened? That's part 2. You need more coffee first. This next part gets complicated. Grandpa, it's 4 in the morning. Then we've got plenty of time before sunrise. Zeke settled back in his chair, the beads wrapped around his ancient fingers. Week 7, he said. That's when everything changed. Week 7 began with a morning so cold that frost painted the windows like lace. Kate woke to find Zeke, already outside, rifle in hand, walking the perimeter with the careful attention of a man who knows he is being watched. She dressed quickly in the simple clothes she had made from his spare shirts and trousers, abandoning the habit for everything except sleep. Old habits die hard. The black wool still felt like armor, even when it chafed. When Zeke came back inside, his face told her what she already knew. War tracks, he said. Closer this time. 3 riders circling, watching. Kate's hands tightened on the coffee cup. How long before they move? Hard to say. Could be today, could be a week. Depends on what they want and how patient they are. They want me dead or back in the convent. Patience won't matter. Zeke began gathering materials from around the cabin, boards, nails, leather hinges. Then we make this place defendable, just in case talking doesn't work. The fortification took 3 days. Zeke showed her how to think tactically. Not just where to put barriers, but why. Sight lines, fields of fire, overlapping coverage, the geometry of violence. They reinforced the shutters from the inside, cutting rifle ports that allowed shooting out, but made breaking in nearly impossible. He built a second exit through the floor, a trap door that led to the root cellar, and from there through a carefully concealed tunnel to the creek 30 yards away. Never have just one way out, he told her. Trap yourself and you die. Kate helped measure, cut, and fit the boards. Her hands, soft when he had found her, had developed calluses. She worked without complaint, understanding that survival required more than good intentions. On the third day, they ran drills, simulated attacks, single rider approaching, multiple riders, night assault, each scenario requiring different responses, different positions, different tactics. If someone comes at the door, Zeke said, you don't shoot until I say. We try words first. Words fail, then we fight. He taught her to reload the Navy Colt in darkness, by touch alone. 45 seconds the first time, 28 seconds by the 10th attempt. The muscle memory building with repetition. In a fight, he said, you won't have time to think. Your hands have to know what to do without your brain telling them. They practice moving through the cabin in darkness, from bed to firing position, from firing position to tunnel, from tunnel to creek to forest. The escape route memorized so thoroughly that fear could not make her forget. But it was the quiet moments between the preparation that changed everything. Evening of the third day, both too tired to do more. Kate sat by the fire trying to read, but the words kept blurring. Zeke cleaned his rifle for the third time, hands moving through the familiar motions while his mind worked elsewhere. Finally, Kate set down the book. Tell me about your boys, she said. Not how they died, who they were. Zeke's hand stilled on the rifle. For a long moment, she thought he would refuse. Then he set the weapon aside and stared into the fire. Daniel was 8, serious, always thinking. He wanted to be a doctor, used to watch me treat injured animals and ask questions. Why this cut needs stitching? Why that bone needs splinting? Never satisfied with simple answers. His voice softened. Samuel was 5, wild as a March wind, afraid of nothing. He'd climb trees too tall, chase bears too big, jump creeks too wide. Margaret used to say he was trying to give her gray hair before she turned 30. Daniel died first. Fever took him fast. Samuel fought for 2 days, kept asking for his brother. Didn't understand where Danny went. Margaret held on 4 more days, fought so hard, but the sickness was stronger. Kate crossed the room and sat beside him. Took his hand without asking permission. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to carry that alone. I wasn't alone, had neighbors, had people who tried to help. But grief's a solitary thing. You can have 1,000 people around you and still feel like you're drowning. Yes, Kate whispered. Yes, exactly like that. They sat together in the firelight, 2 people who understood that some wounds never fully heal. You just learn to live around the scar tissue. Can I tell you something? Kate asked. Anything. For 6 years, I prayed for my mother's death every night, asked God to take her peacefully so she wouldn't suffer anymore under my uncle's control. When I learned she had died and I hadn't been there, hadn't held her hand, hadn't told her I forgave her for being too weak to save me, I stopped praying. Haven't said a real prayer since. Don't know if I can anymore. Maybe, Zeke said slowly, prayer's not about words. Maybe it's about what you do when you've got nothing left but hope. Kate looked at him, this rough mountain man with unexpected wisdom, and felt something crack open in her chest. I think, she said, you might be the best man I've ever known. Then you haven't known many men. I've known plenty. None of them were you. That night they slept in the same bed, not from passion, but from need, the comfort of another heartbeat, the warmth of shared presence. Kate's head on his shoulder, his arm around her, both fully clothed, and neither wanting more than this quiet affirmation that they were not alone. Thank you, she whispered into the darkness. For what? For making me feel human again. Week 8 brought the trapline journey, 15 miles through country that tested endurance and skill. Zeke had delayed the trip as long as possible, but winter was coming, and he needed those high country pelts before the heavy snows made the route impossible. You don't have to come, he told Kate. I want to. I need to see your world. They left at dawn, 2 horses packed with supplies for 3 days. The ascent took them through lodgepole pine and aspen groves, climbing steadily into the high country, where the air thinned and every breath required conscious effort. Kate struggled at first. The altitude made her head pound and her lungs burn, but she pushed through without complaint, watching everything, learning constantly. Zeke taught her to read the high country. Weather signs, the way clouds clung to peaks, meant snow within hours. The direction wind moved through valleys told you which passes were safe and which would kill you. The behavior of animals, how they moved to lower ground before storms that humans could not yet see. Wilderness doesn't lie, he said. People lie. Institutions lie, but out here, everything is exactly what it appears to be. Learn to read it right and you'll never be surprised. They reached the first trap at midday, empty but undisturbed. Zeke reset it with the care of someone who understood that equipment was the difference between eating and starving. The second trap held a marten. Prime pelt winner, coat thick and glossy. Kate watched him skin it. The careful cuts at ankles and paws and tail. The way he peeled the hide inside out like removing a glove. The precise scraping that removed fat and tissue without tearing the valuable fur. You do that like surgery, she observed. Same principle. Respect for what you're working with. Rush it, you ruin it. He handed her the skinning knife. Your turn. I don't know how. Only one way to learn. She made mistakes. Cut too deep in places, not deep enough in others. But Zeke guided her hands patiently, showing her how to feel the separation between hide and flesh, how to maintain consistent pressure. By the end, she held a passable pelt, not perfect, but usable. Good work, Zeke said. Most people give up after the first cut. Most people weren't forced to spend 6 years learning patience through needlework. They reached the line shack as the sun touched the peaks. A tiny cabin 12 feet square, barely more than a shelter. But it had a fireplace and a bunk and cache supplies, and after 15 miles of climbing, it felt like luxury. Zeke built a fire while Kate unpacked the food. Salt pork beans coffee. Simple fare that tasted magnificent after a day of hard travel. Tell me something, Kate said as they ate. Why did you really come up here? Not just grief. Plenty of people grieve without becoming hermits. Zeke was quiet for a long time. I was afraid, he finally said. Afraid of loving anyone else and losing them too. Afraid of building something and watching it burn. Afraid that if I cared about anything again, God or fate or whatever force controls the universe would take it away just to prove I couldn't have it. So I came here where there was nothing to lose, nothing to care about. Thought that would make me safe. Did it? For a while, then you showed up and broke my whole system. Kate smiled. Sorry about that. Don't be. Turns out safety and living aren't the same thing. The line shack had only one bunk. They stood looking at it for a moment, both thinking the same thing. We're adults, Kate said. It fits too, if we don't sprawl. Kate, that doesn't seem proper. Proper is a cage built by people who want to control you. I'm done with proper. They shared the bunk, careful at first, maintaining distance. But in sleep, Kate turned toward him naturally, and he wrapped his arm around her just as naturally, and they woke tangled together with morning light streaming through the bumps in the walls. Neither mentioned it. Neither pulled away. The second day brought a wolf, old male gray around the muzzle, smart enough to have avoided Zeke's traps for 2 years. They saw him watching from a ridge, yellow eyes tracking their movement with the patience of a successful predator. He's been outsmarting me since I came here, Zeke said with something like admiration. Why not move the traps closer to where he travels? Because this is his territory. I'm the intruder. Seems wrong to punish him for being good at what he does. Kate looked at this man who showed mercy to wolves and wondered how the church could convince themselves that their God was merciful when they showed none. On the third day, they found the beaver dam. Zeke spent an hour showing Kate how to set the traps properly. Water depth, entrance angles, trigger tension. The drowning pole that ended things quickly instead of letting the animal suffer. You care about their pain, Kate said. Not a question. I kill for pelts and food, not for meanness. Quick death is a mercy I can give. Seems small, but it matters. They caught 2 beavers that afternoon. Zeke processed them both while Kate watched, learning the economics of survival. Prime winter pelts were $6 each, meat that would feed them for days. Fat rendered for waterproofing. Tail considered a delicacy. Nothing wasted, Kate murmured. Can't afford waste. Not up here. That night, descending back toward the main cabin, Kate asked the question she had been holding for 3 days. Do you ever get lonely used to? Before you? What changed? Loneliness is wanting company you don't have. Solitude is being content alone. I had 6 weeks with you. Got used to waking up to coffee already made. Used to hearing you sing while you work. Used to someone actually listening when I talk. Now when you're gone even for a few hours, the cabin feels empty in a way it never did before. Kate stopped walking, made him stop and turned to face her. I feel the same way. When you're checking traps and I'm alone, I catch myself listening for your footsteps, waiting for you to come back, worried something will happen and you won't. They stood on the mountain trail in the fading light, close enough to touch but not touching both, aware they were circling something profound and terrifying. We should get back, Zeke said. Dark comes fast up here. But neither of them moved. Finally, Kate said, I need to tell you something, and I need you to not say anything until I'm finished. All right. For 6 years, I was told that physical desire was sin, that wanting anything for myself was vanity, that my body belonged to God and using it for pleasure was damnation. They made me believe I was wrong for wanting to be touched, wrong for imagining what it would feel like to be loved. I'm not Sister Catherine anymore. I renounced those vows in my heart long before I ran, but I'm still carrying them like chains, still hearing their voices telling me I'm damned for wanting you. She looked directly at him. But I do want you. I want you to touch me. I want to know what it feels like when choosing is mine and mine alone. And I'm tired of waiting for permission from people who have no right to grant it. Zeke reached out slowly and cupped her face in his calloused hands. Kate, listen to me. You don't need permission. Not from them, not from me, not from anyone. Your body is yours. Your choices are yours. If you want this, we do it because you choose it. Not because I want it, though. God knows I do. Because you choose it. I choose it, she said. I choose you. Then when we get back to the cabin, Zeke said quietly, we do this proper. Not rushed on a mountain trail like something shameful. In our bed, in our home, like it matters. It does matter. I know. They walked the last 3 miles hand in hand, and every step felt like walking towards something instead of running away from everything. Week 9, day 2, evening, domestic scene. Kate cooking venison stew that actually tasted good now that she had learned the proportions. Zeke cleaning his rifle, the familiar ritual that centered him. She stopped stirring and turned to face him. Ezekiel. He looked up. I don't want to wait anymore. He set down the rifle slowly. Stood. Crossed the room with the deliberate care of a man who understands that some moments cannot be rushed or taken back. You're sure? His voice was rough. Once we cross this line, everything changes. I've been sure for weeks. I was just afraid. Of what? Of wanting it too much. Of it meaning more to me than it does to you. Of being wrong about what I think I see in your eyes when you look at me. Zeke reached up and began pulling the pins from her hair. The dark mass fell over her shoulders like water, and he threaded his fingers through it with something approaching reverence. Kate, I've thought about this every night for 3 weeks, lying 6 feet away from you, listening to you breathe, wanting to cross that distance so badly it hurt. The only thing that stopped me was knowing you needed to be ready, needed to choose it freely. I'm choosing it now. She pulled off the black habit she still wore at night, stood before him in the simple shift underneath, her hair loose, her eyes clear, no hesitation. Not here, she said, the bed, like we're married. He lifted her easily and carried her the 10 steps to the bed, laid her down like she was made of something precious that might break. In the lamplight, she was beautiful and terrified and absolutely certain. They came together with the tentative awkwardness of 2 people learning each other. Zeke's hands rough from years of wilderness work gentle on her skin. Kate's inexperience balanced by her fierce determination to know what she had been denied. It was not perfect. First times rarely are. But it was honest and tender, and when Kate cried afterwards, Zeke held her and understood that the tears were grief and joy and relief all tangled together. No regrets, he asked quietly. Only that I waited this long. You needed the time to heal, to know it was really your choice. She turned in his arms to face him.
You're not alone.
I love you. I know
We'll
it's
face
too
it
soon to
together.
say it. I know 6 weeks isn't long enough to be sure, but I am sure. I love you. Zeke touched her face. I've loved you since the first time you laughed. That moment in week 2 when you burned the cornbread and couldn't stop giggling. I knew then. Just took me until now to admit it. They made love again, slower this time, learning what pleased and what hurt and what made the other catch their breath. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets in lamplight. Two people who had found each other in the wilderness and decided to stay found. We can't hide here forever, Kate said into the darkness. I know. They'll come. The church, my uncle, someone. Let them come. You say that now, but you don't know what they're capable of, what they'll do to keep me, the money at stake. Zeke was quiet for a moment. Then, Kate, I've been thinking. There's a territorial judge in Cheyenne, honest man, according to the trappers who come through. We could go there, present your case, get a legal ruling that your vows were coerced. That's weeks of travel, through country getting ready for winter. Worth it if it means you're truly free. Kate kissed him. Let's survive whatever's coming first. Then we'll talk about Cheyenne. They fell asleep in each other's arms, and for the first time in 6 years, Kate did not dream of convent walls. Week 10, day 1. Morning brought riders. Zeke saw them first. 5 horses cresting the eastern ridge in formal procession. Leading was a man in purple vestments that caught the early sun like a banner. Behind him, 2 nuns in white habits. Behind them, 2 men in rough clothes with rifles across their saddles. Kate saw them from the window, and her face drained of color. That's Bishop Whitmore, my uncle's closest friend. Zeke pulled on his coat, checked his rifle. Stay inside, let me talk to them first. No, this is my fight. It's our fight, but I do the talking until we know what they want. The rider stopped 50 yards from the cabin. Strategic distance. Close enough to talk, far enough to retreat if shooting started. Bishop Thomas Whitmore was 60, jowled and prosperous, riding a horse worth more than most men earned in a year. He looked at the rough cabin and the rough man standing on its porch with barely concealed contempt. Mr. Crawford, I presume? His voice carried authority and East Coast education. I am Bishop Thomas Whitmore of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Zeke stood with his rifle held casually but ready. Bishop, state your business. I've come for Sister Catherine. She belongs to Holy Mother Church and must return to her sacred duties. Kate stepped onto the porch, then standing close to Zeke. She wore a simple dress she had made from his spare clothes, her hair loose and uncovered. Everything about her posture said she was not the obedient nun they had known. The bishop's shock was visible, even at 50 yards. Catherine, what have you done? You're in a state of mortal sin, living in fornication with this savage. Kate's voice came clear and steady. I renounced my vows, Bishop Whitmore. I am not Sister Catherine anymore. You cannot renounce vows made before God. I can, and I did. Vows made under duress are not binding. Duress, the bishop's face reddened. You entered holy life of your own free will. I entered to save my mother from my uncle's threats. That's not free will. That's extortion. The bishop produced documents from his saddlebag. Waved them like weapons. I have your signed agreements, your vow renewals, your acceptance of the Wyoming transfer, all bearing your signature. Signatures given to protect my mother, who died 3 months ago while you kept me ignorant and imprisoned. Your mother passed peacefully, God rest her soul. As for your presence at the funeral when we were in transit, unreachable. Kate's laugh was bitter. Unreachable because your guards left me tied with barbed wire to die in the wilderness. The bishop's face flickered. Just for a moment. Guilt or calculation impossible to tell. That was unfortunate. The guards exceeded their orders. Exceeded orders, Kate's voice rose. They were ordered to transfer me to a remote mission. Instead, they beat me, bound me, and left me for the wolves. That's not exceeding orders, that's attempted murder. One of the nuns behind the bishop, older with kind eyes, flinched at Kate's words. The other remained impassive. Zeke stepped forward. Seems to me your guards tried to kill her. I've still got the barbed wire if you want to see the evidence. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Crawford. It's a factual statement, Bishop. Wire cuts to the bone, skull fracture, strangulation marks. I'm a medic. I know the difference between accident and intent. The bishop's expression hardened. Regardless of past difficulties, Catherine has vows to honor. She must return with us immediately. Kate stood taller. I'm not going back. Not to the convent, not to Philadelphia, not anywhere you have authority over me. Child, think of your immortal soul. You're damning yourself. If choosing freedom damns me, then I'll be damned. But I'll be free. The bishop signaled his guards. They dismounted, hands moving toward their rifles. Catherine, you're coming with us, peacefully or by force. Zeke raised his rifle smoothly. She said no. That's all the answer you need. Standoff. 2 armed men against 1. But Zeke stood on his own porch with cover and height advantage, and his rifle was already aimed, while theirs were still slung. The older nun spoke then. Bishop Whitmore, perhaps we should discuss this calmly. Violence serves no one. Silence, Sister Beatrice. This is ecclesiastical business. But Sister Beatrice did not silence. She looked at Kate with something like sorrow and understanding mixed together. The younger guards circled around the back of the cabin. Kate saw the movement first. Zeke, behind you. The window exploded inward as the guards smashed through and grabbed Kate from behind, one arm around her waist, the other producing a knife held to her throat. Zeke spun, but could not shoot. Kate was in the way. The angle wrong. Risk too high. The second guard rushed the porch swinging his rifle butt, caught Zeke across the temple. He went down hard, vision swimming, ears ringing. Kate fought. Elbowed her captor in the ribs, stomped on his instep, twisted like Zeke had shown her. But the guard was stronger, experienced, and he simply lifted her off her feet and carried her toward the horses. Zeke struggled to stand, vision blurred and doubled. Drew his pistol, aimed at the guard holding Kate. Let her go. The bishop moved his horse forward, placing himself between Zeke's gun and Kate. Fire that weapon and you'll hang for murder, Mr. Crawford. We are clergy protected by territorial law. You cannot harm us without consequence. Zeke's hand shook, not from fear, from fury and helplessness and the terrible calculation of odds. 2 guards, both armed, Bishop as human shield. Kate held with a knife to her throat. If he fired, they would kill her before he could reload. If he didn't fire, they would take her anyway. Kate saw the impossible choice in his eyes. Ezekiel, don't, they'll kill you. Let me go. Every instinct screamed to fight, to shoot, to die protecting her if that's what it took. But Kate was right. He would die, and she would still be taken, and it would all be for nothing. He lowered the pistol. This isn't over. The bishop smiled, victorious. No, it isn't. They bound Kate's hands with rope this time, gentler than barbed wire, but just as final. Lifted her onto a horse. She twisted in the saddle, eyes locked on Zeke. I'll find you, Zeke shouted. I swear to God I'll find you. Try and you'll hang for kidnapping. The bishop wheeled his horse. She's church property under sacred vow. The law is on our side. They rode away at a trot, Kate looking back over her shoulder until distance and tears made her just a shape against the sky. Zeke stood alone in front of his cabin, blood running from the cut on his temple, hands clenched into fists, watching them disappear toward the eastern pass. He had let them take her, worst decision he ever made, or the smartest. Because while they rode away, believing they had won, Ezekiel Crawford was already planning war. Frame interlude, 1948. Eddie leaned forward in his chair. You just let them take her after everything. Zeke's face in the lamplight was ancient and hard. Sometimes you can't fight, boy. Sometimes the enemy has all the advantages, and fighting means dying stupid. But you went after her. Oh, I went after her. Moment they were out of sight, I was moving. How you said they had guards, the law, the church. The old man's smile was predatory. They had paper authority. I had motivation. Never underestimate what a man will do for someone he loves. Eddie thought of Sarah, the woman he had pushed away because he couldn't talk about the war, because he was broken and afraid. What did you do? tracked them, followed at distance, waited for the right moment. Then I showed them that mountain men don't quit just because the odds are bad. Zeke gave them 10 minutes, long enough for them to think they were safe, long enough to let their guard drop, not so long they could put serious distance between them. He treated his head wound quickly. The gash wasn't deep, but head wounds bled like slaughter. He packed it with moss and bound it tight, ignoring the nausea that came with concussion. No time for recovery, no time for caution. He loaded both horses, riding mountain pack horse. Rifle, pistol, extra ammunition, rope, medical supplies, 3 days of food, left everything else. The cabin could burn for all he cared. Without Kate, none of it mattered. The trail was obvious. 5 horses moving at a steady pace through soft ground. They were heading east towards South Pass, the main route to Lander and civilization. Confident, not bothering to hide their tracks. Why would they? They had the law. They had righteousness. They had a captive woman and no reason to expect pursuit from one mountain man. That confidence would cost them. Zeke rode hard but smart, pushing his horse to the edge of sustainable speed, but not beyond. A lamed horse now meant Kate lost forever. He knew this country better than any map, knew the shortcuts they didn't, the game trails that cut hours off the main route, the places where terrain funneled travel into predictable paths. They were following the obvious route. He could cut cross-country and intercept them at South Pass, the narrow canyon where the eastern and western slopes met. 25 miles for them, following the wagon road. 18 for him, across rough country. He could get ahead of them. The first night he rode until the horse stumbled from exhaustion, then stopped for 4 hours. No fire, cold camp. He treated his concussion with willow bark tea and cold water, fighting the nausea and blurred vision. Slept in 2-hour increments, waking to check the stars and recalculate position. Dreamed of Kate's face as they took her. The terror, the helplessness, the silent plea for him to do something. He was doing something now. Dawn found him 20 miles from the cabin, crossing the high ridge that overlooked South Pass. Below him in the valley, he saw their camp. 5 people, comfortable. Campfire. The guards taking turns on watch but casual about it. Kate tied to a tree separate from the others. Sister Beatrice bringing her food. A brief conversation he couldn't hear from this distance. He spent the day watching, learning their patterns. Guard rotation every 4 hours. Kate allowed minimal movement. Fed separately. The bishop staying in his tent with the younger nun. Sister Beatrice, though. She kept going to Kate, talking. Kate nodding. A connection there. Sympathy, maybe? Or guilt? Potential ally. Zeke mapped the camp. Approaches, cover, firing positions, escape routes. Memorized it all with the careful attention of a man who understood that mistakes and violence get you killed. As the sun set and the temperature dropped, he made his decision. Wait for midnight. Guard change. Momentary distraction. Infiltrate. Extract Kate. Disappear into terrain they didn't know and darkness they couldn't navigate. Simple plan, lots of ways to fail. But the only plan he had. Midnight came cold and clear. The guard change happened exactly as predicted. 4 hours of boredom made men sloppy. The departing guard spent 3 minutes talking to his replacement, both focused on complaining about the cold and the long ride ahead. 3 minutes when no one was watching Kate. Zeke moved through the camp like smoke. 60 yards, 40, 20. Every step placed with exquisite care. Downwind so the horses wouldn't smell him. Slow enough that movement wouldn't catch peripheral vision. He reached Kate. She was awake, eyes wide as she saw him materialize from darkness. He covered her mouth before she could gasp. Quiet, I'm here. Relief and terror warred in her expression. She nodded. He cut the ropes. Cheap hemp, not barbed wire, easier. But still, it took 2 minutes to saw through the binding while his back itched with exposure. Kate whispered 2 guards, both armed. Bishop in the tent with Sister Mary. Beatrice is sympathetic but scared. Can you run? Watch me. They moved toward the horses, 20 yards of open ground. 10, 5. Zeke stepped on a dry branch. The crack echoed like a gunshot in the still air. Who's there? The nearest guard spun, raising his rifle. Run! Zeke shoved Kate toward the horses. The guard fired, muzzle flash bright in the darkness. The bullet cracked past Zeke's ear, close enough to feel the wind. Kate ran, reached the horses, grabbed reins. The second guard came around the tent, rifle up and firing. Bullet hit the tree 6 inches from Kate's head, spraying bark. Camp erupted, shouting, confusion. The bishop emerging from his tent in night clothes, bellowing orders. Zeke and then Kate mounted the same horse. No time to take two. He kicked hard and the animal leaped forward. Behind them, guards scrambling for their horses. More shots. Wild in the darkness, but still deadly if luck turned bad. They rode into the night with death chasing them. The pursuit was brutal. Rocky terrain made safe by daylight turned lethal in darkness. The horse carrying double weight couldn't maintain full speed. Behind them, the guards' horses fresher and carrying single riders gained ground. 2 hours of hard riding. The horse lathering, breathing hard, starting to stumble. Kate's arms tight around Zeke's waist, praying silently. Zeke spotted the canyon ahead. Narrow, defensible, 20 yards wide with rock walls on both sides. "We have to make a stand," he said. There, I can hold that entrance. You stay back with the horse." They reached the canyon mouth. Zeke dismounted, pulled his rifle. Kate took the reins and moved 30 yards into the canyon where the walls provided cover. The guards arrived minutes later, saw the situation, dismounted outside rifle range. "Give up, mountain man," the first guard shouted. "You can't win. We've got you trapped." Zeke fired. The bullet sparked off rock 3 feet from the guard's head. Both men dove for cover. "Doesn't look trapped from here," Zeke called back. Standoff. They couldn't advance without walking into his rifle. He couldn't leave without being shot from behind. Stalemate until the bishop arrived with Sister Beatrice. Thomas Whitmore looked at the canyon, at Zeke's defensive position, at the impossibility of extracting Kate without casualties. "Mr. Crawford, be reasonable. This can only end one way." "Yeah," Zeke called back, "with her free and you riding away. She has made sacred vows before God. Those vows cannot be broken by violence." Kate stepped forward then into the firelight from the guards' torches. "I was 17, coerced. Those vows are void. Church law says otherwise." "Well, then church law is wrong." Sister Beatrice moved forward, slowly, hands raised to show she was unarmed. "Bishop Whitmore," she said clearly, "I must speak." "Not now, sister." "Yes, now." Her voice held unexpected steel. "I witnessed Catherine's entrance to our order. She was told explicitly that her vows were temporary, that she would be released at 21. The bishop's face purpled. "You're mistaken." "I'm not." Beatrice produced a folded letter from her habit. "Bishop Reynolds wrote this before his death, confirming that Catherine's entrance was coerced, recommending her immediate release." She held it up to catch the torchlight. "You've been hiding this letter for 2 years, Bishop, since the day Bishop Reynolds died and you took over the Philadelphia diocese." That's, Whitmore sputtered. "You have no authority to make such accusations." "I have conscience, which I should have followed years ago." Beatrice turned to Kate. "I'm sorry, child. I should have spoken sooner. Should have defended you when you asked for release. I was a coward."
You're not alone.
"You're speaking now," Kate said
We'll
quietly.
face it together.
"That's what matters." The guards looked at each other. One lowered his rifle slightly. "Sir," he said to the bishop, "if the nun's entrance was forced, then maybe we shouldn't." "You'll do as you're ordered." "I was hired to guard church property, not kidnap women." The second guard nodded agreement. "Same. This doesn't feel right." Bishop Whitmore's authority crumbling visibly. "You're all damned, all of you." Sister Beatrice walked toward the canyon, toward Kate and Zeke, choosing her side with her feet. "I'm staying with Catherine. She'll need witness to her release from vows. I can provide that testimony. You'll be excommunicated. Then I'll be honestly excommunicated rather than dishonestly complicit." The guards mounted their horses. "Bishop, we're done here. The woman wants to leave. The nun says she has that right. We're not getting paid enough to argue theology." They rode off, leaving Whitmore alone with his younger companion. The bishop stared at Kate with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Catherine. Your inheritance. Your mother's estate. $12,000 the church is owed for your care and education. I'll have the law after you for debt. My mother left me $200,000, Bishop. I think $12,000 is a small price for my freedom. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. Whitmore and the young nun rode away into the darkness, defeated but not destroyed. Kate sagged against the canyon wall. Zeke caught her. Sister Beatrice stood awkwardly to the side, uncertain of her welcome. "Thank you," Kate said to her, "for speaking, for the letter, for everything. I should have done it years ago. Let me help now." The three of them made camp in the canyon. Small fire, guard rotation through what remained of the night. In the morning, they would ride back to the cabin and figure out what came next. But for now, Kate was free. Zeke held her while she shook with reaction. "You came for me," she whispered. "Always will." He's right, though. The debt, the law. He'll use everything to force me back. Then we fight it legal. Get you a proper release. End this for good. Sister Beatrice spoke from across the fire. "I know a territorial judge in Cheyenne, honest man. If we present the evidence, Catherine's coerced vows, the bishop's malfeasance, he'll grant release." "That's weeks of travel," Zeke said. "Worth it if it means Catherine is truly free. Not running, not hiding, free before it under law." Kate looked at Zeke. "What do you think?" "I think we try, and if that doesn't work, then we run to Canada or Mexico or somewhere they can't reach. But we try legal first." They decided that night to fight. The 3-day ride back to the cabin established a strange new dynamic. Sister Beatrice, 55 years old, kind-faced and quietly competent. She had spent 30 years in service to an institution she was now questioning. Rode without complaint, helped without being asked, spoke little but listened much. Kate, still processing her recapture and rescue, stayed close to Zeke, touched him frequently as if confirming he was real. Zeke watching the back trail, constantly planning the next steps. They reached the cabin to find it undisturbed. The bishop and his guards had ridden straight through, not bothering to search or destroy. Arrogance. They had assumed Kate recaptured was Kate defeated. They had been wrong. That first night back, Sister Beatrice experienced the full primitive reality of frontier living. One-room cabin, no privacy, subsistence-level supplies, wilderness extending in every direction for 100 miles. "You live here?" She looked around with barely concealed shock. Kate smiled. "We thrive here." And Beatrice could see it was true. The shooting targets Kate had set up, the tanned hides proving her growing skill, the preserved food, the books, the evidence of a life being built, not just survived. "You found something real," Beatrice said quietly. "I found myself," Kate replied. "The self the convent tried to erase." They spent 3 days planning. Beatrice wrote a detailed affidavit, her testimony about Kate's forced entrance, the promises made and broken, the pattern of coercion she had witnessed over the years, Bishop Whitmore's suppression of Bishop Reynolds' letter. Kate wrote her own testimony. 6 years condensed into brutal honesty, the initial coercion, the broken promises, the punishment transfer, the attempted murder by abandonment. Zeke prepared for the journey, sold pelts in Lander to raise cash, $200, enough for travel, legal fees, bribes if necessary. On the 4th night, Kate and Zeke were alone in the barn while Beatrice slept in the cabin. "Are you afraid?" Kate asked. "Of what?" "That we'll lose, that the law will side with the church, that all of this will be for nothing." Zeke pulled her close. "If we lose, we run. I meant what I said. Canada, Mexico, somewhere. But we try this first because you deserve freedom under law, not just geographical distance. What if running is all we get? Then we run together. I've lived in worse places than Canada." She kissed him, long and deep and desperate. "I love you. However this ends, I need you to know that. I love you." "I know, I love you too." They made love in the hay, urgent and fierce, storing up strength against whatever came next. Morning brought a rider, rough-looking man, outlaw type, but carrying an official-looking document. "Message from Bishop Thomas Whitmore," he said, not dismounting. Zeke took the paper, read it. His face went hard. "What is it?" Kate asked. "Trial by combat. Old territorial law still legal in Wyoming. The bishop challenges me. Challenges you to what? Single combat. I win, you go free, and all church claims are void. I lose, you return to face church judgment." The messenger spoke again. "You got right to refuse, But if you do, Bishop's already filed kidnapping charges with territorial marshal. Laws on the way to arrest you. When 3 weeks, town square and lander, public combat, witnessed and binding. The messenger rode off, leaving them with the ultimatum. Kate grabbed Zeke's arm. You can't. This is a trap. He'll send someone who'll kill you. Or it's a chance to end this legally. At the cost of your life. Beatrice examined the document. This is legitimate. Old law rarely invoked but still binding. If Ezekiel wins, the ruling stands. Church has no further claim. And if he loses, then Catherine returns to church custody and Ezekiel likely dies. Kate turned to Zeke. We run, tonight. We leave everything and we run. And spend our whole lives running, looking over our shoulders. Never safe. I'd rather run forever than watch you die. Their first real argument, fear against determination, safety against freedom. Zeke took her face in his hands. 3 weeks. We prepare. I train. Then I fight. And I win. You can't know that. No, but I can try, and trying is all anyone can do. Kate wanted to argue more, wanted to scream and cry and force him to run, but she saw the set of his jaw and knew he had made his choice, just as she had made hers when she left the convent. Then I help you prepare, she said, and if you die, I'll kill whoever killed you. Then I'll kill the bishop. That's my girl. Eddie's hands had stopped shaking. For the first time in 6 months, his hands were completely still. You fought a trial by combat, he said, in 1873. In 1874, Zeke corrected. Winter delayed it. Gave me time to train. Who did they send? The old man's face went grim. Desmond Coltrane, ex-cavalry, court-martialed for killing a superior officer. Wanted in 3 territories. Killed 11 men in sanctioned duels. How did you... That's part 3, boy, and the sun's coming up. You need to hear how it ends. Eddie looked at the eastern horizon where light was beginning to paint the sky. He had been listening all night, and it felt like 5 minutes. Grandpa, why are you telling me this now? Really? Zeke looked at his grandson with ancient eyes that had seen too much and somehow still held kindness. Because you're drowning in the past, and you think that makes you broken. But Kate was drowning too, and she chose to fight for air instead of letting the water take her. That's what you need to do, boy. Stop drowning. Start fighting. I don't know how. Yes, you do. Call Sarah. Tell her the truth. Tell her you are broken, but you're trying to heal. Ask if she'll help. She might say no, but she might say yes. Either way, you'll have tried. Eddie thought about Sarah, the way she had looked at him before she left. Not with anger, with grief, like watching someone she loved disappear into fog. What if it's too late? It's never too late while you're still breathing. Now let me finish this story before I die of old age right here. The 3 weeks before the combat were the hardest of Zeke's life. Training every day, running to build endurance, chopping wood to build strength, wrestling practice with Kate as resistance, though she pulled her punches terrified of hurting him. Sister Beatrice provided intelligence. She had contacts in Lander, learned everything she could about Desmond Coltrane. 38 years old, 6'4", 240 pounds, former cavalry champion boxer, discharged dishonorably for beating a lieutenant to death in unauthorized combat, now working as enforcer for hire. The church had chosen their champion well. Kate watched Zeke train and tried not to show her terror. He was 45, in good shape for his age but still aging, slower than he had been at 30, weaker than he had been at 20. Against a professional fighter 15 years younger and 60 pounds heavier, his odds were not good. But he trained anyway, reviewed his cavalry hand-to-hand combat training, practiced techniques for fighting larger opponents, speed over strength, precision over power, survival over pride. Kate helped however she could, timed his runs, pushed him to keep going when exhaustion made him want to quit, tended his injuries from training, held him at night when the fear caught up to both of them. You don't have to do this, she would say. Yes, I do. Why? Why risk everything? Because you're worth everything. Beatrice worked on the legal side, writing formal challenges to Bishop Whitmore's claims, gathering evidence, building the case they would present regardless of how the combat went. Week 11, week 12, the training intensified. Zeke learned Coltrane's fighting style from Beatrice's contacts. Aggressive, powerful, relied on overwhelming opponents with strength, but also smart, tactical, not just a brute, had killed his last three opponents. Broken necks, crushed skulls, made examples that discouraged others from challenging him. Kate grew quieter as the date approached, praying even though she had stopped believing, praying to a God she thought had abandoned her, asking for Zeke's life even if it cost her own. Week 13, time to travel, 80 miles to Lander, 4 days on horseback. Kate quiet, Zeke focused, Beatrice praying for all of them. They arrived to find the town buzzing with anticipation. Trial by combat was rare. Entertainment, spectacle, blood sport disguised as law. People came from surrounding ranches and mining camps. Betting pools established. Odds heavily favoring Coltrane. Kate saw him the day before the fight. Massive, scarred, dead eyes that looked at her like she was property to be reclaimed. She went back to their hotel room and was violently sick. Zeke found her on the floor shaking. "He's going to kill you," she whispered. "Maybe. I can't watch that. I can't watch you die." Zeke sat beside her, held her while she cried. "You won't watch me die," he said quietly. "You'll watch me fight. How it ends is up to gone and skill and luck. But you'll watch me try. That's all I'm asking. It's not enough. It's all I have." That night, Kate did not sleep. She lay beside Zeke, memorizing the rhythm of his breathing, the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. In the morning, she said, "I love you. I love you too. If you die, I'm killing Coltrane. Then the bishop. Then probably myself. Don't. If I die, you live. You find someone else. You be happy. Promise me." "I can't." "Promise me anyway." "Fine, I promise, but you're not dying." "Wasn't planning on it. I've got too much to live for." They walked to the town square, hand in hand, knowing that in an hour everything would be decided. Freedom or death. There was no middle ground. Lander Town Square at noon, October 1874. 200 people ringed the rope circle 40 feet in diameter. Miners who had come down from the hills for spectacle. Ranchers from outlying properties. Townspeople who had never seen trial by combat and might never see it again. Children held on shoulders to watch men fight for their lives. Blood sport disguised as justice. The judges sat at a raised table. Territorial Marshal Davis stone-faced and official. Mayor Henderson nervous about violence in his town, but unable to stop legal proceedings. Bishop Thomas Whitmore smiling with the confidence of a man who had chosen his champion well. The rules were simple. Fight until one man submitted or could not continue. No weapons, no outside interference. Victory was binding under territorial law. Death was expected. Desmond Coltrane entered first. 6'4", 240 pounds of scarred muscle. He wore only trousers and boots, his torso a map of old wounds. Knife scars across his ribs, a bullet wound high on his shoulder. Knuckles that had been broken and healed crooked from hitting bone too many times. His eyes held the empty quality of a man who had killed so often it no longer registered as significant. The crowd roared. They had bet on him, expected him to win quickly and brutally. Coltrane flexed and grinned, playing to the audience. Kate stood in the front row with Sister Beatrice, both women holding hands so tight their fingers went white. Kate's face was bloodless, her lips moving in silent prayer to a God she had stopped trusting. Ezekiel Crawford entered the circle. Smaller, older, 5'11" and 180 pounds compared to Coltrane's massive frame. His torso showed the lean muscle of wilderness work scarred from years of hard living, but nothing like the professional violence written across his opponent. The crowd murmured. He looked overmatched, looked like a man about to die. But his eyes held something Coltrane's did not. Purpose. He was not fighting for money or pride or because someone paid him. He was fighting for the woman he loved, and that made all the difference. Zeke looked at Kate. Their eyes met across the crowd noise and chaos. He nodded once. A promise. A goodbye, both. She mouthed 3 words. "I love you." The marshal stood. "Combatants, this is legal trial by combat under Wyoming territorial law. Fight ends when one man yields or cannot continue. May God have mercy on your souls." He raised his hand, dropped it. "Begin." Coltrane moved immediately, not the wild charge of an angry brawler, but the calculated advance of a professional fighter. Testing range, watching how Zeke moved, looking for tells that would reveal weakness. Zeke circled opposite defensive stance, conserving energy. He had studied Coltrane's past fights through Beatrice's intelligence. Knew the man liked to overwhelm opponents early using size and strength to break their will before breaking their bodies. So Zeke made him work for it. Coltrane feinted left, lunged right. His fist came at Zeke's head like a hammer fast despite his size. Zeke slipped it, barely, felt the wind of passage, countered with a quick jab to Coltrane's floating ribs. It was like punching oak. No reaction, no pain. The man did not even flinch. Coltrane laughed. "That the best you got, old man. This gonna be quick." Zeke said nothing, saved his breath. The first 5 minutes were testing. Coltrane pressing forward with combinations. Military boxing cavalry style. Jab cross hook, textbook and brutal. Zeke blocking some dodging, others taking a few glancing blows that sent pain radiating through his arms. He countered when openings appeared. Quick strikes to ribs, kidneys, throat, targeting vulnerable areas since he could not match power. Coltrane shrugged them off. His size absorbed punishment that would have dropped smaller men. At the 5 minute mark, Coltrane changed tactics. He rushed, covered distance in 3 long strides, and drove his shoulder into Zeke's chest, lifting him off his feet and slamming him to the ground. The impact drove air from Zeke's lungs. His head bounced off packed earth. Vision swam, ears rang. Coltrane dropped his full weight onto Zeke's chest, knees pinning his arms. Drew back his fist for a skull-crushing blow.
You're not alone.
Kate screamed, the sound cut through crowd noise like a blade. Zeke twisted. Not much room, not much strength, but enough. He got his head out of the way as Coltrane's fist drove into the ground where it had been. Felt bone crack in the bigger man's hand. Coltrane roared, not pain, rage. Zeke bucked and rolled, using Coltrane's imbalance to throw him off. Both men came to their feet, circling again. Coltrane's right hand was swelling already, 2 fingers broken at the knuckle. He switched the hand back, shaking it out, grinning through the pain. "You're quick, I'll give you that. But quick only delays the inevitable." Zeke spat blood. The fall had split his lip. "Talk's cheap, prove it." 10 minutes in the fight turned ugly. Coltrane abandoned technique for overwhelming assault. He came forward, throwing combinations without defense accepting hits to give them. Each of his blows carried bone-breaking force. Each of Zeke's, even when they landed clean, seemed to accomplish nothing. A left hook caught Zeke across the jaw. His head snapped sideways, and he went down hard, vision graying at the edges. The crowd roared, money changing hands, bets being settled. Coltrane moved in for the kill, but Zeke had been knocked down before. In cavalry brawls, in barroom fights, in the wilderness when grizzlies and mountain cats tested whether he deserved to survive. He had always gotten back up. As Coltrane closed, Zeke lashed out with his foot, caught the bigger man's knee from the side, hyperextending it with an audible pop. Coltrane stumbled, first real damage. The knee buckled and he dropped to one leg. Zeke surged up, drove his elbow into Coltrane's face, felt the nose break. Blood sprayed hot and copper tasting. Both men separated, breathing hard, bleeding hurt. The crowd had gone quiet. This was not the quick execution they expected. 15 minutes. Both fighters exhausted. Coltrane favoring his damaged knee, blood streaming from his broken nose. Zeke's face swelling from the jaw, hit ribs screaming from the earlier slam. They circled each other like wounded animals, knowing the fight had reached the phase where skill mattered less than will. Coltrane charged again, desperation making him reckless. If he could not end this soon, his damaged knee would fail completely. Zeke saw it coming, sidestepped, let Coltrane's momentum carry him past, stuck his foot out. Coltrane went down face first. The damaged knee gave out completely as he tried to catch himself. Zeke was on him instantly, not giving him time to recover. Raining blows down on the back of his head, his neck, his kidneys. Brutal. Efficient. The kind of violence born from necessity, not anger. Coltrane rolled, trying to throw Zeke off. His size still an advantage, even damaged. He got Zeke in a bear hug, crushing ribs, trying to squeeze the life out. Zeke felt bone crack. 3 ribs on his left side gave away with sounds like dry kindling. Pain exploded white hot. could not breathe. Vision tunneling. This was how he would die. Crushed in the arms of a man fighting for money while Zeke fought for love. No. He drove his forehead into Coltrane's already broken nose. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact bringing fresh blood and agony for both of them. Coltrane's grip loosened. Not much. Enough. Zeke twisted free, dropped, rolled away gasping. Each breath was knives in his chest from the broken ribs. 20 minutes. Both men could barely stand. Coltrane on his knees, blood covering his face, right hand, useless, left knee, destroyed. But his eyes still held that dead killing light. Zeke's swaying ribs, broken face, a mask of blood, and swelling 45 years old, and feeling every one of them. The crowd was silent. Even the gamblers had stopped shouting. This had gone beyond entertainment into something primitive and terrible. Kate's face was wet with tears she did not remember crying. Coltrane tried to stand, made it halfway before his knee collapsed again, fell forward onto his hands, looked up at Zeke with something like respect. "Just end it," he said, voice thick from the broken nose. "Quick, I earned that much." Zeke could have, should have, by the logic of combat. Coltrane was finished, could not defend himself. One more blow to the head would end it clean, but as Zeke raised his fist, he heard Kate's voice in his memory. "You're not a murderer. Don't let them make you into one." He lowered his fist, stepped back. "Yield," he said. Coltrane stared at him. "What?" "You heard me. Yield. I'm not killing a beaten man. Don't care what the crowd wants. You're done. Yield." For a long moment, Coltrane did not move, his professional pride warring with his survival instinct. Then he nodded slowly. "I yield." The words came out clear despite the blood and broken nose. The marshal stood. Combat concluded. Ezekiel Crawford wins by submission. The ruling is binding. All church claims on Catherine Hartwell are void. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some angry at lost bets, most just shocked they had witnessed something they would tell their grandchildren about. Kate broke through the rope and ran to Zeke, caught him as his legs gave out, lowered him carefully to the ground while Sister Beatrice rushed to help. "You won," Kate sobbed. "You won. You're alive. You won." Zeke tried to speak, coughed blood instead. The broken ribs had punctured something internal. "Got you free," he managed. "Worth it." Then the pain and exhaustion and blood loss caught up with him, and Ezekiel Crawford's world went black. He woke 2 days later. The room was unfamiliar. Clean white walls, sunlight through real glass windows, the smell of carbolic and laudanum. A doctor's office or hospital, though Lander was too small for a proper hospital. Kate sat beside the bed, her head on the mattress, asleep sitting up. Her hand held his fingers intertwined even in sleep. Zeke tried to move and immediately regretted it. Everything hurt. Breathing hurt. Thinking hurt. Existing hurt. Kate woke at his movement. Her eyes went wide. "You're awake. Thank God you're awake." "Where?" His voice came out as a croak. "Dr. Patterson's office. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 3 broken ribs. 1 punctured your lung. Concussion, lacerations, bruising everywhere." Her voice broke. "You almost died." He said, "You almost died." Coltrane, alive, broken knee, broken nose, broken hand. He'll walk with a limp the rest of his life, but alive because you showed mercy. Zeke closed his eyes. "Good." The door opened. Dr. Patterson, stern, faced and competent, came in carrying medical supplies. "Mr. Crawford, good to see you conscious. You gave us quite a scare." "How bad?" "Bad enough that you shouldn't have won. Bad enough that most men would be dead. But you're a stubborn bastard, if you'll pardon my language, Miss Hartwell." Kate did not care about language. "When can he travel?" "Travel not for weeks, possibly months. The lung needs time to heal. The ribs need to knit. He needs rest and care and absolutely no physical exertion. We need to get to Cheyenne to see the territorial judge." Dr. Patterson shook his head. "Not possible. Not for at least 6 weeks." Zeke tried to sit up, failed. "The bishop. He'll use the delay, file new claims." "He already has," Sister Beatrice said from the doorway. She entered carrying documents. "Bishop Whitmore has filed a civil suit. claims the church provided Catherine with housing, food, education, and religious instruction for 6 years. He's demanding $12,000 in compensation. Kate went pale. I don't have $12,000. He knows that. It's debt bondage, legal in the territory. If you can't pay, you're bound to work off the debt through labor, under church supervision. So I'm still trapped. Not necessarily. Beatrice set down the documents. I've been investigating. Your uncle Robert Hartwell. He controlled your mother's estate as executor. But I found records. Your mother's will left everything to you. $200,000 in shipping interests, properties, investments. Your uncle has been controlling that money illegally since your mother's death. The church was complicit because Bishop Whitmore received substantial donations from your uncle. It's fraud, conspiracy, multiple felonies. Zeke forced himself more upright despite the pain. Can we prove it? I have copies of your mother's original will. Letters between your uncle and Bishop Whitmore discussing the arrangement. Bank records showing transfers of funds that should have gone to Catherine's trust. Where did you get all this? Beatrice smiled thinly. I spent 30 years in church administration. I know where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. Kate looked between them. So what do? We present everything to Judge Hart in Cheyenne, not just the debt claim but the underlying fraud. Show that the bishop's claim is built on criminal conspiracy. 6 weeks, Dr. Patterson reminded them. Minimum, before this man can travel. 6 weeks of waiting, of healing, of watching the back trail for trouble. The town of Lander became temporary home. Dr. Patterson allowed Zeke to recover in his office. Kate and Beatrice stayed at the hotel, spending days gathering more evidence and preparing their case. A local lawyer, Arthur Morrison, agreed to help. Young, ambitious, hungry for a case that would make his reputation. He reviewed Beatrice's evidence and whistled low. This is bigger than debt bondage. This is conspiracy to defraud, unlawful imprisonment, attempted murder by the guards who abandoned you. We prosecute this right, and the bishop goes to prison. We just need Ezekiel healthy enough to travel, Kate said. Morrison looked at the battered man on the doctor's table. Take your time. The law moves slow. We build the case properly. Now we win when it matters. Week 1 of recovery, Zeke could barely sit up. The punctured lung made every breath an exercise in controlled agony. Kate fed him, washed him, read to him when the pain made sleep impossible. Week 2 brought strength enough to stand, to walk a few steps before exhaustion forced him back to bed. His ribs began to knit, the sharp pain dulling to a constant ache. Week 3, Sister Beatrice received a letter from Mother Superior Agnes in Philadelphia. Marked personal and urgent. Beatrice read it alone first, then brought it to Kate and Zeke. Mother Superior has been investigating on her end, she said. 4 other young women, same pattern as Catherine, wealthy families, forced entry into convents, families controlling their inheritances through church partnerships. It's systematic, not just Catherine, a scheme to extract wealth from families while keeping the women powerless. Kate felt sick. 4 others. How many more we don't know about? Mother Superior is going to testify. She's documenting everything, names, dates, amounts. She wants to burn the whole corrupt system down. Why now? Zeke asked. Why not years ago? Because Beatrice said quietly, seeing Catherine fight gave her courage. Sometimes one person's bravery creates permission for others. Week 4 brought a visitor. Desmond Coltrane, walking with a heavy limp knee bound and braced. He entered the doctor's office, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. Zeke tensed. Kate moved between them instinctively. I'm not here for trouble, Coltrane said quickly. Came to say something. Say it and leave, Kate said coldly. You showed me mercy. Coltrane looked at Zeke. In 20 years of fighting, no one ever showed me mercy. They either beat me and finished it, or I beat them and they died. You won and you let me live. So I'm done with fighting for money, with hurting people because someone pays me to. You didn't have to spare me, but you did. That means something. He reached into his coat. Kate grabbed a scalpel from the medical tray ready to fight. Coltrane froze, slowly produced an envelope, set it on the table. That's a sworn affidavit. Everything I know about Bishop Whitmore, how he hired me, how much he paid, what he told me to do, it's all there. Why? Because you earned it. By being a better man than I've ever been. Coltrane turned to leave, paused at the door. For what it's worth, I hope you two make it. World needs more people who fight for love instead of money. He left before anyone could respond. Kate opened the envelope, read the affidavit, looked up at Zeke with tears in her eyes. This is everything. Proof the bishop hired him. Proof of intent to harm. Combined with everything else, this ends it. Week 6 arrived. Dr. Patterson examined Zeke thoroughly. Ribs are healed enough to travel if you're careful. Lung is functioning, though you'll never breathe quite the same. You'll hurt for months, maybe years, but you can make the journey to Cheyenne. They left the next morning, Kate, Zeke, Beatrice, and lawyer Morrison. 4 people with a stack of evidence that would dismantle a conspiracy. The journey to Cheyenne took 6 days. Careful travel, frequent stops. Zeke's ribs ached with every jostle, but he endured. Kate rode beside him, watching for signs of exhaustion or pain. They arrived to find Judge Warren Hart already aware of the case. Bishop Whitmore has been very vocal about you, Miss Hartwell, calls you an apostate and a thief, says you owe the church substantial compensation. Morrison spread their evidence across the judge's desk. Your Honor, what the bishop calls debt is built on fraud and conspiracy. The hearing took 3 days. Day 1, Bishop Whitmore presented his case. Documentation of Kate's 6 years in the convent, food, shelter, education provided, a debt of $12,000 itemized and notarized. His lawyer was good, professional, made it sound reasonable that Kate owed compensation for services rendered. Day 2, Morrison presented their counter case. Mother Superior Agnes testified via deposition, confirmed Kate's forced entry, the broken promises, the systematic pattern of coercing wealthy young women into convents while families controlled their inheritances. Sister Beatrice testified in person, detailed everything she had witnessed over 30 years, produced Bishop Reynolds' letter confirming Kate's entry was meant to be temporary. Desmond Coltrane's affidavit was entered into evidence. The hired violence, the attempted murder disguised as transfer to remote mission, bank records showing the flow of money, from Robert Hartwell to Bishop Whitmore, donations that looked legitimate but were actually payments for keeping Kate imprisoned. The original will, Anna Hartwell leaving everything to her daughter, not to her brother, not to the church, to Catherine. By the end of day 2, Bishop Whitmore's lawyer was sweating. Day 3, Kate testified. She told the entire story. 17 years old and forced to choose between convent and watching her mother be declared insane. 6 years of asking for release and being denied. The transfer to Wyoming. The guards who beat her and left her to die. She spoke clearly, without drama. Just facts presented with devastating honesty. Judge Hart asked questions, probing, making sure he understood the full scope. Finally, he sat back. This court will recess while I review the evidence and prepare a ruling. 2 hours later, he returned. This is one of the most disturbing cases I have encountered in 20 years on the bench, he began. What we have here is not a simple debt dispute, but a conspiracy involving fraud, false imprisonment, attempted murder, and systematic exploitation of vulnerable young women. Bishop Whitmore's face went purple. The court finds that Catherine Hartwell's entrance into religious life was procured under duress. Her vows, therefore, are void. All contracts stemming from those vows are similarly void. The plaintiff's debt claim is dismissed. Kate sagged with relief. Furthermore, Judge Hart continued, the evidence suggests criminal conspiracy between Bishop Thomas Whitmore and Robert Hartwell to defraud Miss Hartwell of her rightful inheritance. I am ordering a full investigation by the Territorial Attorney General. This is outrageous, Bishop Whitmore stood. The church is beyond secular jurisdiction in matters of faith. Sit down, Bishop. This is not a matter of faith. This is criminal fraud. And if you continue to disrupt these proceedings, I will hold you in contempt. The bishop sat visibly shaking with rage. Judge Hart turned to Kate. Miss Hartwell, you are free of all church claims. Your vows are declared void. Your mother's estate is ordered released to your control immediately. Court costs and legal fees will be paid from the estate. He looked at Bishop Whitmore. As for you, sir, you have 30 days to leave Wyoming territory. If you return, you will be arrested. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Kate turned to Zeke and buried her face in his shoulder, shaking with sobs of relief and triumph and exhaustion. They had won, not through violence alone, not through running, but through the law properly used by honest people. They had won. The marriage happened 3 days later. A simple ceremony in a small church in Cheyenne. Kate in a white dress borrowed from a sympathetic townswoman. Zeke in his cleanest clothes, still moving carefully because of healing ribs. Sister Beatrice stood as witness. Lawyer Morrison attended. A handful of townspeople who had followed the case and wanted to see it end properly. The minister, a Presbyterian who disagreed with forced vows on theological grounds, spoke briefly about love and choice and the courage to claim your own life. Kate and Zeke spoke their vows. Traditional words made new by the journey that had brought them here. Promises to love and honor. To stand together against whatever came. To choose each other every day for the rest of their lives. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," Zeke cupped Kate's face gently and kissed her with the tender reverence of a man who had fought for this moment and won. The small congregation cheered. Afterwards, Sister Beatrice pulled Kate aside. "I'm not going back to Philadelphia," she said. "What will you do?" "Cheyenne needs a teacher. I spent 30 years teaching young women needlework and obedience. Time I taught them mathematics and independence instead." Kate hugged her. "Thank you. For everything. For speaking truth, for helping us win." "You saved yourself, child. I just held the door open." They said goodbye on the steps of the church, Beatrice heading toward her new life, Kate and Zeke toward theirs. The journey back to the Wind River cabin took 8 days. Slower than necessary because neither was in a hurry. They camped under stars, made love in their bedroll, talked about the future. "What do we do with $200,000, Zeke asked. "Keep enough to live comfortably. Donate the rest." "To what?" "Women escaping situations like mine. Legal funds, safe houses, education. Turn my mother's fortune into freedom for others." Zeke smiled. "Your mother would be proud." "I hope so. I'll never know for sure, but I can honor her by helping others." They reached the cabin in mid-November. Snow already dusting the peaks, winter coming fast. Everything was as they had left it. The chickens dead from neglect or predators. The garden gone to seed. The cabin cold and musty from months of abandonment. But it was home. They spent 2 weeks preparing for winter. Restocking supplies with money Kate now had access to. Repairing what had broken, making the cabin tight against the cold months ahead. December brought the first heavy snow. And Kate brought news. "I'm pregnant," she said one evening by the fire. Zeke, mending a trap, looked up sharply. "You're sure 3 months. It happened before the fight. Before everything." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were training to fight for your life. I didn't want to add that weight to what you were carrying." Zeke set down the trap and crossed to her, placed his hand on her belly where no sign showed yet. "We're having a baby. Are you happy?" "I thought I'd never be a father again, after losing Daniel and Samuel. Thought God had closed that door. Yes, I'm happy." They held each other while snow fell outside and the fire crackled and their child grew in the space between them. Spring came, then summer. May 1874 brought labor. 20 hours of struggle. Kate screaming curses that would have scandalized her former mother's superior. Zeke holding her hand and letting her break his fingers if it helped. Dr. Patterson had come to stay for the birth, hiking 15 miles because winter had delayed his departure. He delivered the baby with practiced competence. "A boy," he announced, "healthy, strong lungs from the sound of it." Kate held her son, exhausted and crying and completely in love. Zeke looked at the tiny face and felt something crack open in his chest where scar tissue had been. "Jacob," Kate said. "We'll name him Jacob, after my father who I never knew well enough." "Jacob Crawford," Zeke agreed. "Sounds strong." They raised him in the wilderness, teaching him to read from Shakespeare and the Bible, to shoot and track and survive, to respect life while understanding death, to choose his own path while honoring where he came from. Years passed, Jacob grew, other children followed. 2 daughters, Sarah and Anna. The cabin expanded. The fortune Kate had inherited funded a small school for children of nearby ranches, funded legal aid for women escaping forced marriages and religious imprisonment. Mother Superior Agnes wrote regularly. The investigation she had started brought down 3 bishops and freed 8 young women from coerced vows. The church, faced with scandal, implemented reforms. Small victories, but real. Robert Hartwell died in 1878. Apoplexy, the doctor said. Kate did not attend the funeral. Felt nothing at his death except relief that he could not hurt anyone else. Bishop Whitmore lasted longer. Lived until 1882. Died in obscurity in California, exiled from the church he had served and betrayed. In his final days, he wrote letters. One came to Kate, an apology, admission of every crime, confession that he had justified cruelty as duty for so long, he had forgotten what actual duty looked like. That seeing her fight and win us had shown him how far he had fallen. Kate read it and cried, then wrote back, "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying hatred is its own prison. You're free now. So am I." She never knew if he received the letter before he died, but she meant every word. The sun had risen fully over the Colorado mountains. Eddie Crawford sat on the porch holding rosary beads that had belonged to a woman who died before he was born, listening to his grandfather finish a story 70 years in the making. Kate lived until 1943, Zeke said quietly, 93 years old. Died in her sleep with me holding her hand. We had 70 years together. Jacob grew up and gave us 7 grandchildren. They gave us 14 great-grandchildren, and every single one of them free to choose their own path. Eddie's hands, which had been shaking for 6 months, were completely still. "The bishop," he asked. "You forgave him too." "Kate did. Took me longer. But yes, eventually. Holding anger is like carrying hot coals. You're the one who gets burned." And Coltrane became a blacksmith in Lander. Married a widow with 3 children. Lived a quiet life. We saw him occasionally. Always nodded to each other. Never spoke about the fight. Didn't need to. Eddie turned the rosary beads over in his hands. "Why tell me this story now? Grandpa, why tonight?" Zeke looked at his grandson with eyes that had seen too much and somehow still held kindness. "Because you're drowning in what happened in the Pacific. Because you pushed Sarah away when she tried to help. Because you think being broken means you can't be fixed." But Kate was broken. 6 years of imprisonment broke something in her. And she still chose to fight. Still chose to live. Still chose love, even when it was terrifying. "That's what I need you to understand, boy. You're not too broken. You're just scared. And scared is something you can work with." Eddie felt something crack open in his chest. The wall he had built around the memories. The barrier between him and the world. "I don't know if I can," he whispered. "Yes, you do. Call Sarah. Today. Tell her you're broken, but you're trying. Ask if she'll help. She might say no, but she might say yes." "What if it's too late?" Zeke smiled. "Kate and I lost 3 months when the church took her. Could have lost everything. But we got it back because we tried. It's never too late while you're still breathing." Eddie stood, felt the weight of the rosary beads in his hand, the physical connection to a story about choosing freedom over safety, love over fear, fighting over surrendering. "These are mine now. Kate wanted you to have them. Before she died, she told me which grandchild would need them most. Knew you'd come home from war carrying weight. Knew you'd need the reminder." Reminder of what? That chains can be broken. That vows made under duress don't bind. That love chosen freely is sacred even when the world calls it sin. That sometimes the only way to truly live is to risk everything for something worth dying for. Eddie looked at the old man, 120 years old, impossibly ancient, but his eyes still held that intensity. "Grandpa, how have you lived this long?" Zeke's smile was gentle. "Doctors can't explain it. Kate used to say I was too stubborn to die. But truth, I promised her I'd stay until you needed this story. Until the grandchild who needed it most came home from war broken and thinking he couldn't be fixed." Eddie felt a chill. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm tired, boy. Been tired for 5 years since Kate died. Stayed because I made a promise. Now I've kept it. You're not dying, not today. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And I'm ready. I've had 70 years with the woman I loved. Seen my children grow. Seen you come home alive, even if you're hurting. I've done what I needed to. Rest is just rest. Eddie sat down hard. I can't lose you too. You're not losing me. I'm giving you everything I learned. Everything Kate and I built. That's not loss. That's inheritance. They sat together as morning light spread across the ranch. The old man and the young one, connected by blood and story, and the understanding that some battles are won not by fighting, but by choosing to keep living. Finally, Eddie stood. I'm calling Sarah, right now. Good man. And Grandpa. Yeah. Thank you for the story, for waiting, for everything. Zeke nodded, closed his eyes in the morning sun, looked peaceful in a way Eddie had never seen. 3 weeks later, Ezekiel Crawford died in his sleep, peaceful, painless, simply did not wake up one morning. Doctor said his heart just stopped, worn out after 120 years. Eddie stood at the funeral holding the rosary beads while the minister talked about a man who had lived longer than anyone had a right to, who had loved deeper than most people dared, who had fought for what mattered and won. Sarah stood beside him. They had talked, cried together, started the slow work of healing. She had come to the funeral because Eddie asked, because he was trying, because broken things could be fixed if you chose to fix them. At the graveside, Eddie placed the rosary beads in his grandfather's hands, then took them back. Zeke had given them to him. That inheritance was meant to be kept, not buried. The headstone was simple. Ezekiel Crawford, 1828 to 1948. Beloved husband, father, grandfather, he chose love. Beside it, Kate's headstone, Catherine Hartwell. Crawford, 1850 to 1943. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, she chose freedom together, even in death. Eddie stood there long after everyone else left, Sarah beside him, holding his hand, waiting patiently. Finally, he spoke. I'm going to tell our children this story, when we have them, about the great-great-grandparents who fought for each other. We don't have children yet, Sarah said gently, but we will. If you'll have me, if you'll help me heal, if you'll take the risk on a broken man trying to put himself back together. Sarah kissed him. Everyone's broken somehow. The question is whether you're trying to fix it. And you are. So yes. They walked back to the house hand in hand. Behind them, the mountain stood eternal. The wind moved through the grass. The world continued. And somewhere maybe two souls who had fought so hard for love looked down and smiled. Because the story did not end with them. It continued through Jacob, through the grandchildren, through Eddie, through generations yet unborn who would carry forward the lesson. That sometimes the right choice looks wrong to everyone else. That sometimes love means fighting for someone the world says you shouldn't have. That freedom is never free. Someone always pays the price. And that the only way to truly live is to choose something worth dying for. Eddie kept the rosary beads for the rest of his life. When his first daughter was born, he told her the story. Then his son, then his grandchildren. The beads passed down through generations, each keeper adding their own chapter to the saga. But it all started with an old mountain man who found a dying nun under a willow tree in 1873, who chose to save her when leaving would have been easier, who fought for her when running would have been safer, who loved her when forgetting would have hurt less, who showed that sometimes the greatest act of courage is not the grand gesture, but the quiet choice to care about someone when the world tells you to walk away. That was the lesson Eddie carried forward. That was the inheritance Zeke and Kate left behind. Not money, not property, not fame, but the simple revolutionary understanding that your life is yours to choose. Your chains are yours to break. Your love is yours to claim. And that freedom once earned, once fought for, once paid for in blood and tears and broken ribs, is the most sacred thing a person can possess. The story ended where it began, on a porch, at sunrise, with a man telling another man about the moment everything changed, about blood on sacred ground, about love between heaven and earth, about the choice that breaks chains, about two people who should never have met but did, who should never have survived but did, who should never have won but did, because they chose each other every day for 70 years, and that in the end was enough.